the Yankees roll on for their third consecutive series victory to start the season. They are now 6-3. So they win their first two home series against San Francisco and Philly. And now they go to Baltimore, win 2 out of 3. So some nice consistency early. And, it was nice, too, after a tough loss to start the series. And, when I look at the season, the first 9 games, only one of them was a game where it's like we kind of thoroughly lost. And that was the second game versus the Phillies. This game felt somewhat similar to the loss versus San Francisco. And so it was winnable. But, hey, the Yankees bounce back. They win the second and third games of the series, getting contributions from different players. Franchy Cordero definitely stands out in this series. Hits a 3-run homer in the first game, even though they lost. It was a big homer at the time. Then he homers again today in the rubber match. Aaron Judge has a couple of home runs in this one. Johnny Brito back up in a solid performance. Nestor doing what Nestor does. The bullpen, after a rough first game, looked pretty good in games 2 and 3. Injuries continue to pile up as well. We discussed Josh Donaldson at the end of the Phillies episode, and he has in fact gone on the injured list with a hamstring injury. It doesn't seem like it's going to be long term. It might be the minimum, 10-day stay, but we'll see. What was of surprise is Jonathan Loaizaga heading to the IL, and so that's I believe it was termed elbow inflammation, I think is what it was, and so for Loaizaga, that one hurts because the bullpen's definitely a bit decimated. On top of that, and maybe this is more not surprising, but a little bit, Tommy Kahnle is placed on the 60-day IL. So I think maybe there was a hope that Kahnle would return maybe at some point in May, early May. I don't really think that's going to happen. And so that's a big loss too, right? I mean, Kahnle was brought back in here to be one of the top arms in the pen. So the bullpen's taking a bit of a hit. The rotation as well is not whole at all. And it doesn't help that Clark Schmidt continues to struggle. We'll get into that very shortly here. Other moves, Johnny Brito, like I said, back up, which is good. Happy about that. Willie Calhoun also on the roster now. We haven't seen him appear yet in any of the games, in part because Franchy Cordero has been great. So Willie Calhoun's role is probably not all that big, although I like his, I like what I saw in spring. I know Calhoun's a decent bat. Can't really field, but he's a decent bat. But let's jump right into it. Game 1, there's a lot to discuss, and I find myself, when the Yankees lose, there's a lot more to kind of get into. And in this one, this was a game where Aaron Boone can be questioned. Although, to be fair, we didn't know that Loaizaga was out. That does change the perception slightly, but there were other things to question for sure. This is a winnable game, but really, let's start right at Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt does not look very good, and I'm just wondering if maybe he's better served out of the bullpen. Look, let's see what he does. He's still lined up to start the last game in this Cleveland series coming up. And it's not as if Clark Schmidt doesn't have good stuff, but, just he tries to be too fine, kind of nibbles a bit. There's too many walks for my liking with Clark Schmidt. I just simply don't trust him. That's what it is. And so right now I look at this, obviously Cole and Nestor are total mainstays. And you don't want to think too much in the moment, but you look at the other three, right? The other three, Schmidt, Herman, and Brito. Schmidt, I'm not feeling good about. Herman is what Herman is, right? Like, he's going to give up home runs. He's going to give you innings. Like with Schmidt, there's theoretical upside. With Herman, again, like he's been in the league now for a bit. He is what he is. And Brito, I've been impressed by him so far, right? I mean, maybe more impressed by him in the San Francisco start, but at Baltimore, that's a solid lineup. This is a good Oriole team, really is. And so Clark Schmidt, that leaves him in a spot where, let's say somehow Brito and Herman pitch well, right? That's a big if, for sure. But if Clark Schmidt continues to pitch like this, to me, he's first man out. But again, a ways to get there. But Schmidt, in this one, only goes 3 1/3 again. And so that kills the bullpen too. He goes 3 1/3, gives up 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. That is not good. As far as the Yankee lineup was concerned, you're going to see a lot now. We saw it all series with Donaldson out. It's going to be a lot of DJ at third, right? So a lot of DJ at third. Judge, I believe, played center in each game of this series. Stanton DH the entire series. And so you're finding some things that are, you know, like against righties, Cordero is going to be in there every time at this point. And against lefties, it's probably going to be Aaron Hicks, with Kiner-Falefa maybe mixing in there. But I think as of now, of course, Trevino and Higgy's always going to switch up, right? That's always going to change. But, and again, you know, going to Cleveland tomorrow, I could see a bit of a funky lineup against Cleveland tomorrow. That would not shock me. But I know we're going to see Franchy Cordero in there. And the funny thing with him is that he was on Baltimore this spring and did really well. So he kind of stuck it to them. He said, hey, look, I should have made your team. I should have been a part of this roster. And he really made them, you know, he made it clear that they made a mistake. So, you know, for this one, Yankees get off to a bit of a slow start. Dean Kramer is on the mound for Baltimore. And in the bottom of the second is when Schmidt runs into some trouble as he allows a single and a walk with one out. And then Adam Frazier gets an RBI single to give the Orioles 1-0 lead. Then Gleyber Torres, who, again, like, I'm praiseworthy of what he's done this season, but here he kind of fucks up in what could have been a double play ball. Not definitely, but could have been, but he totally boots it. And so it ends up being 2-0 Orioles. Everyone's safe, the run scores, and so it's 2-0 Baltimore. Let's jump to the bottom of the third. The struggles continue for Clark Schmidt as he allows a leadoff walk to Adley Rutschman, and Adley Rutschman's great. I mean, it sucks that he's going to be in the division for a long time. This Baltimore team, I'm telling you, if they can get the starting pitching, they're going to be good. They still, that starting pitching needs work, and that's what's going to hold them back, but the lineup is good. A double for Anthony Santander, second and third, no out. You got a sac fly by Ryan Mountcastle, and then another youngster, Gunnar Henderson, with an RBI double. And he's had a slow start to the season, but he is like the top prospect in baseball. So it makes it 4-0 Orioles. But the Yanks respond in the fourth, and it's a 2-out rally. Oswaldo Cabrera, who has a really good game in this one. Oswaldo, you know, I'm noticing, and it's not a surprise, he's a lot better as a left-handed hitter than a right-handed hitter, without question. So he singles, and then Trevino walks, and then Franchy Cordero hits his first homer as a Yank, a 3-run homer to make it from a 4-0 game to a 4-3 game. And so the Yankees find themselves right back in it. Then Schmitz does start the fourth, gives up a single to Mateo. He does get Mullins to fly out, and then he's out. So Schmidt, luckily, out of the game. And then Ian Hamilton comes in and really does a mostly nice job. And, you know, he's got that pitch, the Slambio. But I got to say, with Hamilton, I like what I've seen. And he is someone that could maybe be a weapon out of the bullpen, you know. But again, early. He gets out of that inning, keeps it at 4-3. Kramer settles down in the fifth, pitches a 1-2-3 inning. Then in the bottom of the fifth, it would be a Ramon Urias double with 2 outs, and he had a really good game in this one. Really, really good game. But Aaron Judge makes a nice catch on Adam Frazier, so he helps Hamilton there, and so the score remains 4-3. We go to the sixth. Leadoff single Giancarlo Stanton, who is off to, I mean, statistically, maybe it's not great, but it feels like Stanton's doing pretty well. Gets a leadoff single there, and then Dean Kramer's out. They bring in Logan Gillespie, and after a walk to Gleyber Torres, you get a chance for Oswaldo Cabrera. He comes through with a 2-run double, gives the Yanks a 5-4 lead. Things start to now get interesting strategy-wise. Jose Trevino does not get the job done. Trevino grounds out, so Cabrera stays at second. They then bring in the lefty, Danny Kalum. And Kalum would have been set to face Cordero, but they pinch hit Kiner-Falefa. And Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is off to a bad start at the plate. He doesn't have a hit. I think he's 0 for 12 and like just soft contact all over the place. Hey, give him credit. When he's been in center field, he's done the job. So it's not a defensive issue, but offensively, he's giving you nothing. And, you know, at the time, I don't hate the Kiner-Falefa move, but it is the sixth inning. That's kind of the biggest problem I have with it. There's still a lot of game to go. You're winning at this point, and so maybe you didn't need to go there. And then the funny thing is that Cordero was left in the game to face Kalum, and he got a base hit. So it kind of, on the one hand, good on Baron Boone to not make the same mistake twice, but it's like, damn, you probably should have left him in there. Anyway, so even though Trevino fucks up and doesn't get the run over, there's a balk. So Oswaldo Cabrera moves to third, and Kiner-Falefa, runner on third, 1 out. I would not have hated a safety squeeze situation here, but that was not part of the equation. And Kiner-Falefa does, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa does he pops out. And so he does not get the job done there. That's a bad job. Really, really bad job. And then Anthony Volpe strikes out. And Anthony Volpe really struggled in this game. He would come through with a nice triple in the second game. But Anthony Volpe, look, he's looking a bit overmatched. You're going to be patient with him. I'm not going to go crazy about it, but just being honest, Volpe has struggled. We go to the bottom of the sixth, and there's a defensive change. Connor Falefa's in center. He's kind of like Isaiah Connor Falefa. That's kind of his spot when he's in for now, which is interesting. But Ian Hamilton, maybe he's left him just a little bit too long. With one out, Jorge Mateo, the former Yankee prospect, gets a single. And so Hamilton's out at this point, and Marinaccio comes into a tough spot, somewhat of a tough spot. Mateo steals when Marinaccio comes in, but then Mullins grounds out. Runner on third, 2 out, Yankees up 1, Marinaccio, Adley Rutschman. And this is a spot where I wouldn't have hated a walk, not intentional, but Rutschman was fouling it off, and eventually he wins the battle. Great at bat, he singles the other way. So it's a combination of, I kind of wish Marinaccio was brought in sooner, but Clark Schmidt put them in a tough spot in general. Like, it would have been nice to get another out from Ian Hamilton. But yeah, that wasn't ideal. I can't kill Boone for it, but they tied up at 5 right there. We go to the 7th, and the Orioles bring on a lefty. He pitches a 1-2-3 inning. And then in the bottom of the 7th, Marinaccio, leadoff walk to Mountcastle. Then he strikes out Gunnar Henderson. Mountcastle steals second on it. And then they bring in Jimmy Cordero, which had everyone up in arms, myself included. But we didn't know that Jonathan Loaisiga was not available. Marinaccio was already at 29 pitches at that point. I'm sure that's not what Boone wanted to do, but it does hurt. And maybe you could have brought in Wandy Peralta right then and there. There's other moves he probably could have made. But look, he was kind of up against it, and Jimmy Cordero does not get the job done. And to be fair to Cordero, the outings before that weren't bad, but it was just wild. Wild pitch has Mountcastle move to third, and then Ramon Urias gets an RBI double to give the Orioles the lead 6-5, but it doesn't stop there, which sucks, right? It's one thing if it stops there. Hey, technically, that's Marinaccio's run. After Frazier grounds out, you got 2 outs, Urias on third, but then another wild pitch by Jimmy Cordero. Another one. And maybe one of them, there might have been one of them where Trevino maybe could have done a better job. And I will say, Trevino's defense, while it is normally spectacular, it's been a little bit off to start the season. I know I'm being critical. But it's a wild pitch by Jimmy Cordero, makes it 7-5. He would finish the inning. We move to the 8th, and the Yankees are building a bit of a rally here. And the 8th was a critical point. And just so you know, most of the analysis is into this game. We'll be able to breeze through the other two a little bit more easily. The leadoff double by Giancarlo Stanton is great. Then Gleyber singles. It's first and third, no out. And then Oswaldo Cabrera. So that combination, which did well in the 6th, does well again here. Was it the 6th or the 5th? It was the 6th. Does well again here in the 8th. Oswaldo Cabrera with an RBI single, 7-6 Baltimore. So the lefty Perez is out, and they bring in Brian Baker. And this is where things get interesting. Does it make sense to have Jose Trevino bunt with Connor Falefa and Volpe coming up? Or does it make sense for him to swing away? Probably swing away, but Trevino gives himself up and attempts to bunt the first 2 pitches, but they're balls. And this is where you can't get mad at anyone, but it was frustrating. Trevino ends up swinging away and lines a grounder to Urias, and they get a 5-3 double play. So now it ends up as a runner on second, 2 out. And I kind of wish Trevino took the pitch. It was a strike. It was right down the middle, and he crushed it. So you can't be too mad at Trevino. A walk would have been awesome if it happened, but look, that might not have happened. Just a very unfortunate set of circumstances, one in which criticisms could be allowed in terms of whether you should have just had Trevino straight bunt, whether you should have maybe not have, I don't know, maybe you give him the red light on 2-0, which I know sounds a bit ridiculous, but it doesn't work out for the Yankees, and so Oswaldo Cabrera actually steals third, which was really risky, with Isaiah Connor Falefa up, and Connor Falefa strikes out. So IKF not in the good graces of Yankee fans, and deservedly so. It's been a really poor start to the year for Isaiah Connor Falefa. And so, a bad pop out earlier, a bad strikeout here, and so the Yankees score 1 run, but they remain down 1. Wandy Peralta comes in the 8th and gets a little bit interesting, but he gets the job done. As Wandy usually does, he keeps it at 1 run, and then the Yankees have to face Felix Bautista, who is one of the more impressive relievers in baseball. He is the Oriole closer, and he strikes out Anthony Volpe, finishes up a really bad day for Volpe, and then LeMahieu strikes out. But Aaron Judge continues his on-base streak, which he would continue through the series, which is now at 42, I believe. At the end of the series, he walks. To that point, Judge hadn't gotten on. So then he's still second, and then he gets the third of the wild pitch, and Anthony Rizzo's up. And with Anthony Rizzo, that's one of the guys you kind of went up in these spots. But unfortunately, Rizzo flies out to left, and the Yankees comeback falls short. A frustrating loss, a lot of pivotal moments, and it just didn't go the Yankee way. And it kind of reminds me just a little bit of that San Francisco loss, where there was some mistakes, the bullpen wasn't great, timely hitting wasn't always there. And so the Yankees lose a somewhat high-scoring affair. So now the Yankees, they're behind the 8 ball. They could lose this series altogether immediately, but they don't. And it's Johnny Brito that gets the job done. It wasn't as pretty as the first game against San Francisco, but yet the stat line looks pretty solid. Just a lack of strikeouts, but that's all right. And as far as this game was concerned, you basically have the same crew in there, except it's Higgy for Trevino, and it is Hicks instead of Cordero. And Hicks as a righty, I can live with it. Do I wish Aaron Hicks was off this team? Yeah. But I think that Hicks is a right-handed hitter. It's okay. And really, it's kind of your best option right now anyway, with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa struggling. So Johnny Brito is back, and, it's exciting to see a young pitcher who's been in the system have some success. So for Brito, gets off to a little bit of a rocky start. The first inning was not very good. And look, if luck had been better, maybe Brito gives up no runs, because after a Mullins single, Rutschman singles off of Brito. If that doesn't deflect off him, maybe it's a double play. So things did not exactly work out in his favor, although he was hit hard. And so you get a sac fly by Anthony Santander. All I know is that inning could have ended up a lot worse, and Brito settled down after that. And on the mound for Baltimore was lefty Cole Irvin. And Irvin escapes trouble in the second. First and second, no out. Cabrera strike out. Hicks fly out. Higashioka fly out. And then in the second, like I said, Brito settles down, goes 1-2-3, and it's getting better for him. But the Yankees can't really get to Irvin until the fourth. Leadoff walk Rizzo, a 1-out walk by Torres, and with 2 outs, an RBI single by Aaron Hicks. And so Hicks, he really needed that again as a right-handed hitter. I don't know if the stats show it, but he looks more comfortable. The swing is a little more simple, and he ties it up right there. So give Hicks credit. It's 1-1. We go to the fifth. And Anthony Volpe gets his first triple in the major leagues. And if this was at Yankee Stadium, this is a home run. This is almost a home run at Camden Yards, but it does go off the wall. Good hustle by Volpe. And then you get a double, an RBI double by DJ LeMahieu. So for LeMahieu, a lot more swing and miss this year, but a lot more extra base hits as well. So it's a little bit of a different DJ, but it works. And the Yankees take a 2-1 lead. Then after a wild pitch, Aaron Judge gets a sac fly. So nice job by Aaron Judge getting LeMahieu in. It's 3-1. And then Austin Voth comes on, and Giancarlo Stanton greets him with just a missile. A missile to left center field. His third homer of the year, 436 feet. So it's a nice inning for the Yanks. Starts off with a Volpe triple, ends off with a Stanton homer. You get 3 runs that inning. And then Brito, in a key fifth, where he gets a 3-run lead, he gives up a leadoff single, but he settles down. And he hadn't had any strikeouts at that point, but he strikes out Favre, and then to end it, strikes out Adley Rutschman. So a nice way to end it for Johnny Brito. He is now 2-0 on the season with a .90 ERA. Then in the sixth, Voth settles down, goes 1-2-3, and then Michael King. What can't be lost in this series is that Michael King does a nice job and goes 2 scoreless. 2 scoreless innings in the sixth and the seventh with 3 strikeouts, preserves that 4-1 lead, and he needed that because King really, hadn't looked quite right, and especially with Loaizaga out of the mix, good to see King pitching well. And, Keegan Aiken comes in for the Orioles. He pitches in the 7th and the 8th. Wandy Peralta goes back-to-back days. He pitches in the 8th inning and does a nice job. Gets a couple of strikeouts as well. So Wandy just has been really a godsend for the New York Yankees since he became a Yank back in 2021 in that trade with San Francisco for Mike Tauchman. Then in the ninth, Mike Baumann comes on and pitches a scoreless inning for the Orioles. And then Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes starts what is a really impressive first couple of game 2 and 3 of the series. Holmes does a really, really nice job. There was a walk. There was a wild pitch. So, right, sometimes Holmes gets erratic, but he settled out, straightened out, and he is able to close it out and give the Yankees a 4-1 win. So now let's go to the rubber match today between Nestor Cortes and for the Orioles on the mound was Tyler Wells. Tyler Wells, pitched all right, but Cortes was doing his nasty Nestor stuff. His line is a little unfair. We'll talk about that. So here, Cordero back in the lineup, Trevino as well against the righty. And this time the Yankees get the lead as a couple of one-out singles by Judge and Rizzo. Rizzo's was a little bit lucky, as it was either lost in the sun or just bad communication, and it drops in front of Austin Hayes. And then it's a Giancarlo Stanton RBI single. Gives the Yankees 1-0 lead. Unfortunately, Gleyber Torres hits a double play. That was a first and third one-out spot, and Gleyber hits a double play. Gleyber did cool down in the series, as you'd expect that he might, although obviously he has a great history at Camden Yards. So the Yankees only score one there. It's a 1-0 lead, but then Nestor really does a great job for a while. And the Yankees give him an extra run in the third, and it's Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, who hadn't homered since the San Francisco series, hits his first home run of the day, third home run of the season, a dead center field bomb. So impressive. I mean, the pitch was really high, kind of up at his eyes almost, and Judge is as large as it is. Goes up and gets it, and the Yankees take a 3-0 lead. Nestor continues to pitch well, and then in the fifth, the Yankees score again. It's a Trevino single, and then after a balk, Franchy Cordero does it again. Another home run this series for Franchy, and really, securing his spot in the lineup. Franchy Cordero will absolutely be in there, and Cleveland has 3 righties. So you're going to see a lot of Franchy in this Cleveland series. 4-0 Yanks. Then in the sixth, a really nice catch by Cedric Mullins. He might have robbed Anthony Rizzo of a home run. He probably did rob Rizzo of a home run. Keeps it at 4-0. Then in the bottom of the sixth, Nestor gets into a little bit of trouble. A 1-out single by Rushman, who was like 4 for 4 in this game. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. And then Ryan Mountcastle with a double. So then Albert Abreu comes on, and this is what's going to happen. Albert Abreu, with the bullpen being where it is, Abreu is going to be in bigger spots than maybe you'd like. And right away, he gives up a 2-run double. So unfortunate for Cortes that both those runs are on his ledger, but it's just the way that it is. So it's 4-2. But then Abreu does finish out the inning with a couple of strikeouts. And in the seventh, Danny Colon comes on. And that's where I said Franchy stays on lefty-lefty and gets the hit. Interesting. Yankees have a chance. There's first and second, but LeMahieu does ground out against Logan Gillespie. Bottom of the seventh, Abreu still on. Leadoff walk Adam Frazier, and then a fly out to Gunnar Henderson. Then they bring in Ron Marinaccio. Marinaccio would do a good job here, but he would only pitch in the seventh. After a steal by Adam Frazier, and clearly the book on Marinaccio, as I'm kind of revisiting this, is that you can run on Marinaccio, or maybe it's just coincidence, but Favre strikes out, and then Mullins pops out. So Marinaccio only throws like 8 pitches, but because he threw 29 the other day, he does not start the 8th, which I found a little interesting. In the top of the 8th, however, though, Aaron Judge with a big insurance run. His second homer of the day, and it's off Gillespie, and the Yanks take a 5-2 lead. Jimmy Cordero comes on at the bottom of the 8th, which, look, Boone went back to him after he really struggled in the first game, and he starts it off not in good fashion. It's a home run by Adley Rutschman. Gives the Orioles a 5-3 lead, but then he settles down and gets a couple of strikeouts. Cordero's stuff is impressive. He can throw 100 miles an hour. His stuff is actually pretty good. And so it stays at 5-3 after the home run by Rutschman. Then the ninth, Mike Baumann comes on and goes 1-2-3. And then Clay Holmes, a very simple, easy 1-2-3 inning. He strikes out Urias. Frazier grounds out, and then Henderson grounds out to end it. And the Yankees, after a tough first loss, it was the opening series in Baltimore for the Orioles. And the Yankees come back and win games 2 and 3. They are now 6-3. They've won 3 consecutive series, and now they head to Cleveland. Cleveland came off a really big win today. They were on the verge of getting swept in their home opening series to Seattle, but they are able to figure it out. And so they're 6-4. And the Yankees know Cleveland very well. Both teams know each other well from last year's ALDS. And so now it'll be a pretty fired up Cleveland crowd. Of course, it's an April series, but, they remember how things ended up last year. And if you look at things on paper, you don't love Herman versus Bieber, which is game 1. Game 2 is definitely a decided advantage to the Yankees. Garrett Cole will be on the mound for the Yanks against Hunter Gaddis, who I'm not too familiar with, but that you would think that's advantage Yanks. Then game 3 is between Clark Schmidt and Aaron Savali. And Aaron Savali was the game 5 starter for Cleveland, which was controversial at the time, as they could have went with Bieber on short rest, but chose not to and went with Savali, and Clark Schmidt's on the mound for the Yanks. And the last time Clark Schmidt was in Cleveland, he gave up the walk-off hit in game 3. So I'm sure we'll be reliving a bit of that ALDS series, but this will be interesting, and my stance is the same. If the Yankees can take 2 out of 3 from Cleveland, that is excellent. That is absolutely excellent. It won't be that easy, especially when you if you can win Herman Bieber to start, then you're feeling really good about it, but that will be tough. And the key for Domingo Herman is he's got to keep the ball in the park. He gives up a lot of home runs, and Cleveland's coming off a pretty big win. They'll be pretty fired up. And I'm looking forward to this series. This should be fun between the Yankees and the Guardians. Again, Yankees have had 3 series, and they won all 3 of them. They go to Baltimore, and they take 2 out of 3.